Well, hello, welcome to the city of Wildomar. This is our first workshop. I'm glad to see you here. Would always love to have a bigger crowd, so we'll have a few more workshops, so please bring your friends. I was informed that many of you were doing this same thing 20 years ago, talking about parks in Wildomar, so I think that's great to be able to have some of that history, some of that vision, and now you're actually seeing something to get developed. So I think that 20 years of patience is starting to come to fruition, so thank you for coming. Are we going to run through the first slides, maybe? I wanted just to put into context, a couple years ago, and several of you were part of that process as well, we adopted a Parks Master Plan. And that Parks Master Plan was the premise to develop not only a vision as to how many parks we need, how much park space we currently have, and how much we need here in the city, but also to kind of put some parameters as far as cost to develop. And that was important to us because we have about 40% of our land left to develop, and we feel that development should probably pay their fair share, at least 40% of what it would cost to do that. So this document was multifold, one in that it gave us a vision as far as, with big circles, where potentially would we need a park, what size of park, and we focused on three different size of parks. One was the smallest type park, some call it a mini park, we also call it a trailhead, but the smaller type amenity parks. And then we had a neighborhood park, and I'll show you a few examples here in the future in the presentation, but a neighborhood park is like Martin O'Brien. So it's about that size. And then the largest park would be a community park. So Martin O'Brien, as you can see, we already have a handful of amenities. We've got some softball, multi-use play fields, restroom facility, a concession stand, basketball courts and the like. Regency Heritage, really within the flood control channel, it has some basic amenities. And then Winsong Park, which is on the smaller side. It's almost from a mini park to a neighborhood park. So it's, we don't have a lot of parkland, obviously. What we will be talking about tonight, I think, is really exciting because it'll be our first community park. Community park is the largest. It's the one that would support the most amenities. And so in the Parks Master Plan, we identified a whole list of the kind of amenities that could be included in a community park. And it ranges. And you'll be able to see some of those here through the workshop presentation. But we didn't really give you that list because, as I told you before, I was trying to identify what a cost of a community park would be. That didn't preclude the fact that everything on that list or not had to be in a community park, or if there was things not on that list couldn't be included in a community park. What's fun about tonight's exercise and the next couple of exercises, you will have the opportunity to identify those amenities that are important to you, to the community, and consider some of the amenities that we don't have, or do we need to replicate some of those amenities. And so that will be ferreted out through tonight's exercise. And with that, I'd like to introduce RRM. We went through a selection process. We feel fortunate to have them as part of our team. They've done several park sites that are very similar in nature to what we have, with the variety of rural and open space and topography and natural elements. And so I welcome, and Jeff, are you going to take it over?
Sure.
So this is Jeff Gerber with RRM.
I haven't done anything yet. Well, thanks for coming. Even though it's a small turnout, you folks are really starting a very important part of the process. And years down the road, you'll be able to share the stories of how this park got started. A little bit about our firm. We are a design firm with offices throughout California, and we do park master planning up and down the state. I like to say that we help the community put shape to a vision. It's going to be your vision. You all will be starting the process of figuring out what this park should be. We just help bring some expertise and experience to help guide you a little bit and take you through a process. So this is a summary of the process we're going to go through in the next several months. And it involves a number of community workshops, hopefully through social media and telling your friends and neighbors. We can have some additional people come out and help form the vision for the park. After we talk with you tonight, we'll be preparing alternative plans, which will come directly out of the input that you give us. And then at that next stage, we'll be showing you how we developed those alternatives and why they look the way they do. But people will be able to see potential options for how to create the park, and then give us additional input. And eventually it gets to a final plan that the city can consider, look at the cost of those potential improvements, and have a master plan that they can then seek funding. So tonight, real quickly, we're going to orient you to the site a little bit. Even in a community that you live in and we don't, we try to do some homework and learn something about the site that you may not know about, and help you understand the physical characteristics and some of the constraints that can help certain elements in the park come to fruition, and others, there may be some constraints that keep something from happening. So we'll talk about the site a little bit, and then we're going to run through an exercise to have you brainstorm the amenities that we want in the park. And every park needs a vision. So at the end of this slideshow, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you develop a vision and the importance of that. So Amanda's going to talk a little bit about the site, context. And then after we do that, we'll see if you have any general questions that might benefit everyone to hear, and then we'll kind of adjourn to the back there and start brainstorming.
So, as Jeff mentioned, most of you are very familiar with the site. But just to give you a reminder, this is where we're at in the big picture of things, very close to Ronald Reagan Elementary School. And then just a note about this view, since we're zoomed way out, part of the master planning process will be looking at the connectivity of the park to the areas outside of the park. And that's part of the general plan. Is a major goal to really connect recreational facilities, trails, bikeways, and just make everything a little more pedestrian, multimodal connectivity. So I just wanted to mention that. And then zooming in, like I said, right next to Ronald Reagan Elementary School, and then it's bordered by mostly residential. And then more of a three-dimensional view. We've got this, it's definitely not that blue, but we've got a blue line that runs through. It's just a drainage way that we need to be sensitive of, but yes, it's a bit of a heavy blue line there. And then to give you an idea for topography, the very top corner there reads 1,524 feet above sea level. And it drops to the corner of the school 104 feet. So that's a pretty big hilly terrain that we've got going on there. But at the bottom of the site, it's about a 24-foot drop over a wide area. So that's a bit flatter. Top area is very hilly, and then the bottom zone might be more conducive to some of the park amenities that need flatter space, like sports fields, sports courts, things like that. Oh, and then some other physical features of the site. In the white ovals, we've got a few cool little riparian zones, riparian habitats with some oaks and some cottonwoods, and those are both challenges and opportunities. We can enhance those, make them features of the site, but also we need to be sensitive of those zones. So kind of no build zones, but we can enhance them and make them part of the site. And then again, just to give you another visual for the topography, this is the top section of the park. We've got, going from the top right all the way down, you got about 104-foot change, and then you can see this line right here represents the terrain. It's much flatter. And then, Jeff.
Imagine how many people have driven on Highway 1, from Morro Bay to Big Sur. And if you've done it more than once, it's more comfortable than driving it for your first time. If you drive it for the first time in the fog, it could be kind of a scary proposition not knowing where you're going through. So a vision is a bit like knowing where you're going. So if you have a vision for the final product, what this park should be, it helps you know what the park should look like, what should go into the park, and does that make sense? So if you had a vision for a park that was to be tranquil and peaceful and natural and organic, as compared to vibrant, athletic, that drives what the design is like. So tonight we'll be talking a little bit about the vision when we're talking with you. And that's to let you know that it's very important for designers to know what the vision is. It doesn't have to be a grandiose statement, but key words that help us go through that. So this happens to be an example of something that we're doing down in Encinitas, and we went through an exercise, and these were the top words that came out of probably 40 or 50 different terms that they came up with, and then when they expressed their kind of priorities, these were the feelings that they thought for that park was most important for them. We used that to help us figure out how to design the park. And you have this list of amenities, and you figure out, okay, this is what everybody wants in the park. How do we do it in a way that fits that goal? So the amenities that you see on these photographs, the photos are to help you just think about things. They're not proposals from us or from staff that, there should be a pump track, or there should be an amphitheater. But if we just had blank paper, then we all kind of look at each other, and someone has to start, brainstorming, and it's easier if there's, so you maybe say, oh, I love this photo. I'd love to have that in the park. There's lots of things that aren't on those photographs. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't go on the list of amenities. So we're going to walk through that. So we try to show you some images that just get you thinking. We've been designing parks all over California, so we tend to keep a collection of photographs. It's not to say that if you say amphitheater or soccer field or trails that it needs to be like that. And you can even tell us qualitatively what something should be like. If you want to have a pathway around the park and you think it should be paved because people can push their strollers, tell us, I think we should have a paved loop, or I think we should be able to hold a 5K, and half of it should be natural. As much detail as you want us to know, we will put that down.
And the nature of a community park usually has these types of items or amenities in the park. So, community parks generally have, some sort of sports activities. So that's kind of where we start from, and now we're building off of that.
And they also, it's very different from a neighborhood park. The 3 parks we have are closer to neighborhood parks. So you have a more expansive list of amenities typically in a community park. This is to show you that the exercise we're going to do, we've even done with toddlers. So it is super, super easy. It's a lot of fun. What we're going to do is, after we brainstorm with a small group, it's just that much easier. But the reason we give you these stickers is because we want you to make choices. So that way you're not saying, well, everything on the list. Even if there was everything on the list ended up being in the park, we want to know for each of you individually what is most important. So this blue dot will go on the goal statement. So after we brainstorm some of the vision statements, you're going to use the blue dot there. The other 3 dots are all going towards amenities. So they're priorities. So the red one's worth more. I mean, the green one is, in this case, good thing I looked at it.
Yeah.
Worth more than the yellow and the red. And we weight them because if we have to make some determination, what is most important in the community, we can we can actually say that we know where you put your green dots, that's what you most think should go in the park. And you're going to put the red one where I really hope this happens, but not as much as I hope happens with these other dots. So that's the process. All right, so we didn't want to have a real long presentation. We wanted to get into it. But before we go back here, does anyone have any general questions about our process or anything about what we're going to be doing or the site?
I got a question. You don't have parking up there anywhere. We currently have 2 parks that have no parking.
That's a great point. So parking is oftentimes a controversial thing. We know at the school, they feel like they don't have enough parking, and when the kids are dropped off and the kids are picked up, it's really crazy. So they're hoping there's more parking in the park, so it helps out the school. And there could be sort of a joint use thing where when there's something going on in the park, people can parking on site and then also next to the school. Community parks typically have parking. It would be unusual for community park not to have it. Neighborhood parks throughout California, surprisingly, roughly half of them don't have any parking. Most cities have an ordinance that say they don't, but it's always important to talk about it. So if there's anything that you think really needs to be in the park, be sure you let us know. Bathroom, you won't see any photos of bathrooms. We didn't put pictures of toilets on there. But if you think there should be lots of bathrooms or certain kinds of bathrooms, please tell us tonight. Yes, sir.
So best case scenario, how long before it gets to City Council?
Mike, what's our general schedule?
We're working on the schedule now with Dan and the city to work through that process. We'll have the schedule for you here shortly.
Yeah, on that first slide where we showed the series of workshops, it might be helpful to show you where we're at in the process and where we picked it up.
Please stand by.
There we go. So we are at step 2. We will have, at the end of step 2, they will go back and they will take some time to digest this and create some diagrams, and we will schedule workshop 2, which is item number 4. I suspect that will probably occur towards the end of January, February-ish time frame as we're entering into the holiday season, and making sure we can have a robust attendance. So I suspect that item 4 will probably be February-ish. Depending on where that goes, we may have between step 4 and 5 another little mini pop-up type workshop if we feel like we want to still reach out to more of the community. We'd like to have more input, right? And so a pop-up workshop, we've talked briefly about Breakfast with Santa, right? So we have Breakfast with Santa, that's December 16th. Please come. You'll be able to see our fire department. You'll be able to have a good breakfast. It's really a cool time, especially if you have little ones, because they love to climb around the apparatus. We think that'll be a good opportunity to really touch a certain sector of our community, and we'll get some good input, filling out cards and the like. So it won't be a workshop like this, but it'll be something that they could, provide some input on. Between 4 and 6, that's a lot of the heavier lifting, right? That's where we really have to start putting that on there. So, at this current schedule, I would be guessing kind of summer-ish, fall would maybe make sense to be able to have something where we can bring back to the council. And here again, a lot happens in the next couple of workshops, kind of input you give us, the types of things that we may have to prepare could lengthen or shorten that presentation. So that's kind of a range.
I got another question. Your first meeting included stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders?
We didn't. There was a separate meeting that we had that was specific where the school district, for example, they're a stakeholder. They've got an adjacent school. We met with the superintendent. We met with the principal of the school. We wanted to understand how this site interplayed with their site. We did have a representative from the various sports leagues. I'm not saying that we're going to have sports fields. We made that clear to them during that presentation. But we wanted to understand, for an example, tonight, when we start talking about sports fields and trying to fit those on there, we need to understand, are we talking about CIF level size sports fields? Are we talking about entry-level sports fields? So it was more to get the idea of the type of programs that they ran. So we met with those types of individuals for the stakeholders. And then the last group of stakeholders was we invited just the HOA board representative to understand the amenities that they had at their existing parks and the types of things that their community was inclusive or not inclusive. So our team had a feel for what were some of the other amenities in the area. So that was very specific for stakeholders. They did nothing with the visioning. They did nothing with what we're doing tonight.
And police and fire.
Oh, and police and fire. I'm sorry. Police and fire was first. Police and fire, if you had a site, a park site, what's important to you as far as access points? What's important to you as far as clear zones relative to homes and property lines as far as firefighting or police-related services? And so we wanted to make sure our team understood those parameters. So as you start talking about these workshops and they generate 3, they're going to put those parameters into their design element.
Yes, sir.
On those no-build sites, like there were the 2 circles and then there's the drainage, is that drainage is a no-build site as well? Or just the 2 circles? And then I want to know, what do you mean by no-build? Like you can't have picnic tables there? Or you can't build nothing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's sort of a gray area at this point. In general, there are different rules in California for sensitivities that we have to be aware of. So drainages and water courses are one of them. Until we know what the community wants to do in terms of the type of activities, then we can look into setbacks. We can look at, could there be bridges across them? How far away do you have to be? So until we know what those amenities are, we can't really look into it. But we know we need to be very aware of it. In general, in California, because of Fish and Wildlife and the Regional Water Quality Control Board, we know that waterways are a sensitivity. Amanda pointed out the other ones as like these potential riparian areas. It's just that we know that we have to be aware of there could be factors in those areas that there may be habitat. So we can't assume that 100% of the site is available for physical features. Doesn't mean there couldn't be trails, picnicking. Picnic benches, for instance, are very low intensity. So you can go to a regional park or a state park or national park, and you'll find picnicking very close to rivers and streams and camping. So that shows you that you can have amenities. But a soccer field, that requires a lot of grading, you need to look for areas that maybe can accommodate that. Did you have a follow-up question? Okay. All right, anything else? So what we're going to do is you can go to either side because they're identical. Split yourselves up just generally in half, and then we're going to go through this brainstorming to figure out what the vision for the park would be. And by the way, you can throw out anything you're thinking at any time. So if you want to say that it should be passive or super active, we'll put the data down in the right place. That's our job. So just basically tell us what you want. If you have a general question or comment, we have a place to write it down. So if, for instance, you're right near it and you're concerned about fire, you'd say, well, I'm concerned about wildfire and how that may affect the homes. And we would write that as a comment. Okay, great, thanks.